Today I said to give you guys a ranking of the Mortal Kombat films. There are a total of 7 Mortal Kombat films, and these films first began in 1995. They still are ongoing to this day, and 3 of them are live action, and the other 4 are animated. This series is based on the popular video game originally by Midway, first released in 1991, that is also ongoing to this day. Big Mortal Kombat fan, and so without further ado, I decided to give you guys my ranking of the films from worst to best. Starting with Mortal Kombat Annihilation. This film is just basically just a giant turd. If you've seen the original Mortal Kombat film, you know how much of a letdown this one was. It's essentially just a really bad sequel that has terrible green screen effects, really bad acting, very poor continuity from the first film, a complete recasting of almost the entire cast with the exception of just 2 of the characters, and it's quite possibly one of the worst video game adaptations ever made. It does have a somewhat so bad, it's kind of good quality. You can easily get some friends together and have a laugh at this movie, but it's pretty terrible and not one that I recommend. Next, we have Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge. This one is actually not bad. Pretty much every movie on this list from this point forward I actually rather enjoy. The problem with this film, though, is it's essentially a story about the origins of Scorpion and him getting his revenge after him and his family were killed at the hands of Sub-Zero. Only later you find out that it was actually Quan Chi. The problem with this one, though, is it's half origin story and half a retelling of the first Mortal Kombat tournament from the first game. While this can make for an interesting movie, it's a little bit muddled. It doesn't really commit to either story that well. I think the revenge aspect, while interesting, doesn't last long enough and is not really focused on enough. And the Mortal Kombat tournament is just kind of there, and it seems like secondary when it really shouldn't be. It should be its own thing. Not a bad film, good action, good gore, and pretty good animation, although some of the faces do look a little bit weird. But honestly, despite my gripes, I still do enjoy this one. Up next, we have Mortal Kombat Legends Cage Match. This film is basically about Johnny Cage back in the 80s as he finds out that one of his co-stars, Jennifer Grey, actually played by Jennifer Grey, has been kidnapped by this evil organization, and he ends up fighting Shinnok as well as some demons from Outworld. It's a crazy and even cheesy movie, but this might be one of the funniest Mortal Kombat films. Johnny Cage is great here. It has awesome 80s action and awesome 80s soundtrack as well. It's just an entertaining movie from beginning to end, but it is rather silly. And though I think it is technically canon to the other Legends films, it's really loosely canon and doesn't quite line up with the timelines, being that this one takes place in the 80s. But it's still cool to see a young Johnny Cage kicking ass and taking names and getting caught up into this venture basically by accident. And if you like Johnny Cage, you'll probably really like this movie. Up next, we have Mortal Kombat 2021. I really wanted to put this movie higher, but let's get into the positives first, and I'll explain why I didn't. First and foremost, the casting, for the most part, is very good. Everyone is casted well here. All the actors look the part and act fairly well. Also, I really like the look of the movie. I think Outworld looks pretty cool. I think the actor they got to play Shang Tsung was great. He was also in The Dark Knight, although I don't think the wig is doing him any favors. Raiden is fine, but I just wish he was featured more in the movie, but he's still decent. And the opening sequence with Scorpion is just great. That's better than the entire Scorpion's Revenge movie, and that's just like a 10-minute little scene. Also, the fighting itself, although it does take a little while to get to the heavy stuff, is really great, and I like seeing the characters get their powers as well. And Kano, much like in the original film, is a scene stealer, and he's really entertaining. So what's my problem with the movie? Cole, which is an ancestor of Scorpion, is just really lame. He's boring, he's generic, there's nothing interesting about him, and when he gets his powers, it's basically just plot armor. He's not doing any favors to this movie, and him being the main character really does not work. I get it, they didn't want Liu Kang to be the main character again like the original film, but maybe just make it like an ensemble thing, kind of like the Avengers or something, where no one has the main focus. Instead, we get this lame character who I guess is supposed to be like a self-insert for the audience, so he can ask questions and find out about what's going on, but it just doesn't really work. The film is just held back by this main character, and the story, it really does get hurt for it. Even though this film is a precursor to the tournament, which I'm fine with, the ending where they're killing Goro in a barn and everyone's just having random small fights is not that exciting. This film had potential, but it wasn't quite met. I still do think it's a good movie, but I do think it's very flawed. And I'm much more looking forward to the sequel. I just hope Cole gets a fatality 5 minutes into the film, and that would really help things. Up next, we have Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms. I very much enjoyed this one, and it's essentially what the first Mortal Kombat Legends movie should have been, a movie just about the tournament. The Scorpion thing should have been completely separate, and here we get a proper Mortal Kombat film that basically follows the second, and you could argue the third Mortal Kombat games, maybe even a little bit of the fourth, because Shinnok does show up towards the end. This was a really fun animated adaptation that is very accurate to the games, and if we could just see this in live action, it would basically be the best Mortal Kombat movie. The film takes place pretty much immediately after Scorpion's Revenge, and we see our heroes going up against Outworld and the Mortal Kombat tournament. You see several locations from the video games, which is really exciting, and everything in this film is just top notch and entertaining. The only thing I don't like is the last 15 minutes or so it turns into basically a giant kaiju fight, and that seems to come out of nowhere. But apart from that, it's still entertaining. Johnny Cage is great in the movie. Him and Sonya really do have more chemistry in this second film. And it's just a great sequel to Scorpion's Revenge and one of the best of the Legends films. Not much I can say against it. It's just entertaining, and I definitely recommend it. But coming in at number 2, and surprisingly to me, the one I thought was going to be the worst of the Legends films turned out to be the best, and that was Mortal Kombat Legends Snowblind. This film basically sees an old Kuai Liang, also known as Sub-Zero, living on a farm in a desert wasteland. The Earth has basically been reduced to a Mad Max-like place after these zombie-like creatures have taken over, and once they were wiped out, the survivors basically just eked out a living. The main villain this time is the Black Hand Gang, which is led by Kano, who is mostly cybernetic now and is extremely formidable. An up-and-coming warrior named Kenshi, who is also in the video games, tries to take on this gang, and it ends up not going so well for him. He ends up losing his sight after being tricked by Shang Tsung, and he finds his mystical sword, and Sub-Zero decides to train him so he can use his abilities without sight, and makes him a formidable warrior so he can survive the wasteland. But Kenshi decides that he's going to use his abilities to try to stop Kano and his gang, and this ultimately leads to Sub-Zero, after accidentally killing most of his friends when his powers got out of hand, to help the kid out, redon the mantle of Sub-Zero, and even, spoiler alert, team up with his old pal Scorpion to save the day. This one's great because it's completely original. Unlike the other ones, it's not based or inspired by any of the games. It's a completely original story about an old warrior, Sub-Zero in this instance, regaining his hope and his confidence, and being the hero that he always should have been, while also helping this new kid, Kenshi, along the way. I love the title too, Snowblind. There's a reference to Sub-Zero and Kenshi, and they make a great team. Scorpion is awesome as always in this movie, and he's more like a hell demon this time around. Kano is great, and everything about this movie is just an original and fun story, and one that I love. The only thing I don't really care for is the last 10 or so minutes. You actually find out that the reason why Kano is so powerful is that he has Kronika's skull, the villain from Mortal Kombat 11. And this is basically a what-if timeline. The film essentially ends with them destroying the skull and killing Kano, but I would have used the skull to fix the wasteland. You're basically living in Mad Max. It can't get any worse. You might as well just change time, but I digress. Apart from that one gripe, though, this is a really interesting and dour entry into the Mortal Kombat franchise. Very violent, very entertaining, and one that I really love. But number 1 would have to be Mortal Kombat 1995. Now, while this film is PG-13 and it does lack the gore of Mortal Kombat, it really does capture the spirit of the original 2 games. It's awesome to see essentially a mystical version of Enter the Dragon. That's the best way I can describe this movie. You have this group of characters including Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Sonya Blade. Unfortunately, no Jax apart from one brief scene. And they all go to this island and have to fight human and mystical creatures alike, including the likes of Goro. Shang Tsung basically killed Liu Kang's brother, and Liu Kang is on a quest to avenge his brother and win the Mortal Kombat tournament. It's just a fun and entertaining video game movie, and while it does lack the violence, which I really would wish was there, everything else about this film is great. The special effects, for the most part, hold up very well. There are a few dodgy ones, such as the reptile CGI creature, but for the most part, it all works well. The martial arts are well done. Everyone's beefy and muscular in the movie. It's just a fun, pulpy, kind of actiony 90s movie, something that can't really be recreated. I do hope that Mortal Kombat 2 kind of captures the feel of this movie, but just with the violence, which could potentially end up being my favorite Mortal Kombat film if they play the cards right. This one's still my favorite. Well, that's my list. This is really a great series, and I'm not a huge fan of fighting games, but Mortal Kombat has always been one that I really cared for. Hopefully, we get a proper adaptation of the tournament in live action and rated R, and hopefully, Mortal Kombat 2 will give us that, but we'll see. Leave your list down below if you'd like, or just tell me your favorite Mortal Kombat film or your favorite Mortal Kombat character. And peace out.